morning. Have you ever wanted an answer to the question, how long does it take to go live from being asleep when you've got no video prepared? The answer is 9 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. I'm so sorry. I was up quite a bit last night. I last remember being awake at 5:30. This is the joys of being having a young child. However, I did promise I'd be doing a video today, so I'm here. And I do apologise for being late. It's very unprofessional. I will try and make sure it doesn't happen again. Good morning to everyone who's here. Let's get straight into, we're going to do some two-step equations today. 1 and 2 step equations. I'm going to go through it, and hopefully it will help you with some of your algebra skills, those people who are primary school students. Good. Let's get cracking. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to go straight into over here. That's hoping to be there first. And we're going to start off with a little starter, so I can say some good mornings. And it's the anagramma starter, which means you've got to go as many words as you can of 4 or more letters. Write a list of them. You'll have a minute to try and do as many as you can. Off you go. EANTQOSTSI. Let me make that I a bit neater. SIU. Okay, you don't get this unprofessional stuff on TV, do you? Right, I do apologise. Right, good morning to Sophie Stroke Josh. Good morning JJ Gaming. Good morning Alicia. Good morning Willow. Good morning Alvi, I think is Rubik's Cube. I hope I've remembered that right today. Good morning Iona. Good morning Louise. Good morning Lily. Good morning anyone else? Yes, good morning to everyone. Any words you can come up. Nose is good. Quits. Love your work. Few more. Good morning Eddie. You're not late. I'm late. You are probably way earlier than I am. I started 10 minutes late today, which is not good. Mr. Harris was very ashamed of himself at the horror of his alarm going off, looking at his alarm and going, how is it 10 o'clock? What do I do? And just panic. Threw on a shirt. So you can probably tell. Didn't do my hair. Need to sort that out. So, well done anyone who's got... equations is the word that you can see here, because that's what we're going to be focused on. There is this 9-letter word of equations. But there's all sorts of ones. I like the word quest. I'm on a noble quest. Quest. But there's lots of different ones there. Feel free, if you want to do this later, feel free to pause and write down a whole list of words you come up with in the comments underneath the video. Well done to lots of... I can see lots of words being done there. That's excellent. So let's move straight on with 1 and 2 step equations. Now, I believe I've already done some equations work in the transition, level 5 to 9, but this is going to be 1 and 2 step equations. Now, equations, when we first start off, don't have to be algebra. We will be talking about algebra, but it could just be sort of like this. 2 sons equals 24. And we want to know what son equals, because all algebra is missing numbers. It's using symbols or letters to stand for missing numbers. And all we have to do when we think about this is think of it in terms of steps on a flowchart. We have taken son, we've times it by 2, and we got the answer 24. If we're using a flowchart, we can go backwards by undoing, and we use the inverse operation, which is the opposite of times 2, is to divide by 2. So 24 divided by 2 means the son must be 12. That is solving equations. That's a 2-step equation, just it doesn't have letters in it yet. But that approach is what we're going to be looking at doing all the time. Thinking about the flowchart, which will tell us what operations to do. But the only thing we have to remember to do is you're only allowed to do it if you do the same operation to everything. You can't just choose one number to do it to. So let me do this now without it being a sum. Let's do it now as 7, and we choose a letter. 7f's, doesn't have to be x, I often use x, but 7f equals 35. Let's first of all think in terms of the same thing. We have got f, and it has been times by 7, and the answer is 35. So if we think backwards, the opposite of times is divide by 7. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to do it, keep the equals in line, and under both sides, like I said, it has to be to both sides, f is going to equal 5. This is called a one-step equation because I've got one little step on each side. We're going to talk about two steps, but first of all, let's just make sure that we're fully aware of all the one-step equations. I'll go back to black. This time I'm going to use m plus 8 equals 15. Now the reason I've done that is because I wanted to do one which wasn't times. 7f means 7 times f. It's got a hidden times in it. We just don't write times in algebra because it looks a bit like an x. So 7f means 7 times f. This one is not times. It's m, forgive me, m plus 8 goes to 15. So when we read it backwards, we're going to do the opposite of plus 8, which is going to be take away. Lily, give me 2 seconds. Let me finish this one, and then we'll answer your question. It's a good question. So 15 take away 8 is going to be 7. So take away 8 from both sides. M equals 7. Lily's question says, I'm confused. Why do you put equals instead of plus, minus, divide and times? So the equals here is saying all equals does is it's not a random math symbol. It just says that these two things are the same as each other. So it says 7f is the same as 35. That's what 7f equals 35 means. Equals means is the same as. So when we see 7f equals 35, it says this in words is saying 7, not words, but 7 times an unknown thing we're going to call an f. We don't know what it is the same as 35. That's what that sentence says. 7 times a thing we don't know is the same as 35. So by working backwards, we found out that the thing we didn't know was 5. That's the purpose of solving equations. So we're trying to balance the equation, and it's always going to be an equals, because otherwise you can't solve an equation without it having an equals in it. There will always be an equals. We're also going to use opposites, and the opposites you need to know are that add is opposite to take away, and times is opposite to divide. And the year 5s and 6s might even know that squared is the opposite to square root, but we're not going to do any of that today. We're just doing adding, taking away, timesing and dividing. Now in algebra, you do not write the times symbol, but you also don't write the divide symbol. What we do, if we want to do an L for Lily, because she was asking a good question, divide by 3 equals 4. So this means divide. A fraction means divide. So when I think about what's going on, this is L, divide by 3 goes to 4. So when we go backwards, when we're doing the opposite of divide by 3, we're going to do times by 3, meaning that L must equal, keep my equals lined up, times by 3 on each side. 4 times 3 is 12, but this side, L divided by 3 times by 3, that's what causes that to disappear, so it's just L equals 12. And some people I know like to highlight their final answer, and I think that's a good practice, because then you've always got this step-by-step approach. You should never do these in your head. Even if you think, oh, but I can, the point is in year 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and even 12 and 13, you will do more and more complicated equations. If you haven't given yourself the skill of the step-by-step approach, which is why we're going to do two-step equations shortly, then you won't be able to do the harder ones. You'll be stuck at just being able to do one and two step. Albie's asked a question. Mr. Harris was late too. Who's asking why? Oh, Stanley, don't worry about being late. Mr. Harris was late. Yeah, don't worry about that at all. He had an incident involving sleep and him. But we're all here now, so no harm done. So we've got... So, last one I haven't done. P take away 8 equals... And we can have quite big numbers, 29. So, again, we've got P... The operation is take away 8. So we've then got is 29. If we want to read it backwards, we've got add 8 because the opposite of take away is add. So we're going to add 8. Remember, I'm going to do little circles on both sides. Keep the structure. P equals 37. Okay, so that's all. They're the one-step equations we've done so far. Hopefully that makes sense to people. Next, we're going to go two-step equations. Now, if you have understood everything I've said so far today, which you may have done, you may still be just wanting just to check a little bit, and I know it's not in the description yet. As soon as this video is over, I will be finding the link to a worksheet for you to practice these skills. But two-step equations work exactly the same, and let me show you an example without any explanation. Then people can ask questions, and I will do some explanation afterwards. So here's an example. 2y plus 7 equals 19. So, I have got my y. First thing I did was times by 2. Second thing I did was add 7. And that gave me 19. So working it backwards, I've got to take away 7, followed by dividing by 2. It's 2 steps. So the first step I do is take away 7. Which gives me 2y. I move that and keep it in line. That disappears. The equals stays in line. And 19 take away 7 is 12. Now I'm down to a one-step equation, just like before, where it's divide by 2. Divide by 2. Y equals 6. We've done 2 steps to do this. Now the first question I always get asked is, why did we do the taking away before we did the dividing? And why do we do the times first? This follows BIDMAS, which, if you remember, we did a lesson back. It tells us to do times, divide times, add, subtract in that order. Which means if we work backwards, we want to do SAMDIB. You don't have to remember, it's just BIDMAS backwards. But we need to do the taking away first because we're working it backwards. BIDMAS goes forwards, so backwards must be SAMDIB. Okay, some people use BODMAS or BEDMAS or BADMAS. It's okay, you just reverse whatever you're using. So we're going to do the takeaways first, then the divides. Probably want to see more than one example, so I'm going to do a couple more. Okay, so this is just the first example I've done. I'm having a look to see if there's any questions in the chat. At the moment, people are fine, and we've got 16 people watching it live, so that's a lot of people. But if you ever have any questions, remember, even if you're not watching it live, please do feel free to put questions in the comments. I'll always try and respond to questions. So do bear that in mind. So the next question I'm going to do is going to be 9x minus 4 equals 59. Nice big number just to make it so we have to think. Here's my flowchart. You don't have to do the flowchart, but I find the flowchart, especially early on, when I'm just learning this, really helps me to see. what's going on. We're going to do the times 9 first, then we're going to take away 4. That's the story of what's happening. Once upon a time there was an x. He was times by 9 and then taken off by 4, and we got the answer 59. So when we read it backwards, we're going to do it in reverse. The first thing is going to happen is we're going to add 4. The next thing that's going to happen is I'm going to divide by 9. That's going to give me the two options I'm going to have to do, plus 4 on both sides. So that's going to bring 9x down. You're not allowed to add 4 to an x. It doesn't make sense. This minus 4 disappears because we've added 4. And 59 add 4 is 63. Hopefully you all understand where that comes from. Feel free to ask questions. Okay. I'll come back to you in a second, Iona. That's a very good question. And then we're going to divide by 7. Not 7, divide by 9. Mr. Harris is having a moment. So x equals 7. That's where I got the 7 from. So we've done it step by step. Now, Iona's just asked a question, so I will come back to this in a second. Iona said, how do you know that the m equals 7 and the f equals 5 and that 7f equals... So, right. So going way back here, Iona, the 7f equals 35 is a question that is invented, and so is the m. So these would be given to you. This would be like on your page. It would say, what is these? These can be formed from real. This is not a lesson on real world equations and how they come about, but they can come about from situations. So it could be that I buy 7 bits of fruit and it costs me £35. But these are the questions that you're given. Then we use the method we're using to work out the answer to them. So again, going back to the most recent one, the question would have been 9x minus 4 equals 59. We're then working through it. Mr. Harris, could I do this if L is 12, L times 2 equals 24? Yes. So, yeah, if L is 12, then L times 2 must be 24. You can do anything you want with the questions. So you can, if you let's do an example rather than just randomly talking about it. If S, I don't like that. If S equals 9, you can do anything you want once you know that S is 9 with the equation. So you could say, well, in that case, 4S, I don't like S. The reason we don't use S very often is because it looks like a 5, especially when Mr. Harris writes it. So if we have that T equals 9, 4T is going to be 4 lots of 9 is 36. So once you know what the number is, you're absolutely able to build any equation you want. We could say that 4T equals 36 because we know that T is 9. So you can work it backwards the other way. I've seen a few people argue with each other about whether it's math or maths. I'm actually going to say that we can have both. So that's absolutely fine. You could say math, you could say maths. Both of them are acceptable. I stopped. I gave up because people watch this from all over the world. So some people use different words. Maths, absolutely fine using those. We're going to do one more two-step equation. Then I'm going to link you to. I'm going to tell you about a worksheet you can do to practice, and then I'm going to go and get another lie down for an hour. We have got the last one I'm going to do is going to be W over 5 plus 9. I'm using 9 a lot. Let's change that to an 8. W over 5 equals 11. So, remember what I said about the over. It's used for divide. So this is, the first thing is divide by 5, then add 8. So when we read it backwards, and that makes 11, we want to take away 8, then times by 5. That's the backwards version. So let's do that. We've got take away 8 from both sides. That makes 3. The equal stays there. That disappears. And that's still W over 5. It gets copied down. And now we're going to times by 5 on both sides. So W equals 15. And then I'm going to do a standard thing of highlighting the answer. Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, it may be that this has got moved quite fast for you, and that's absolutely fine. Feel free to re-watch the video. Feel free to post questions if there's anything you're stuck with. It is one of those things that you might want to keep practicing. Remember, you don't practice to make perfect. You practice to make permanent. It may be that some of this stuff is confusing. Do not worry. You're going to do lots of it. If you're year 3, for example, you're going to do this in year 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You're going to do this for more years. So please, whatever you do not walk away from today thinking, I didn't get that, I can't do algebra. That's a very silly state thing to be in. It's not a case that people can or can't do algebra. It is imagine it like a mountain. You may only be at the bottom of the mountain at the moment, and it may be that you find it quite difficult at the first few bits, but you will gradually get further and further up, and you maybe can't even see the top of the mountain yet. But don't walk away from the day because it was difficult thinking, oh, I can't do this, because that's just not true. It's something that you'll get lots of practice at. I'm going to put a link to some worksheets that you can do to practice it today, and that will appear in the description by magic in about 5 minutes. But it's mainly all about just practicing. Now, I'm going to do one odd thing today with the Taskmaster task. Last week was half term, we didn't get many things, and no one entered my Taskmaster challenge, so I'm going to keep it for another week. I want people to design a water park. I love water parks. I'm an Aquarius, which means I love water parks. I would like you to go away and design me a water park, a really brilliant water park with flumes and lazy rivers and all sorts of different ideas. I'd love to see what people come up with. It's lovely and sunny, and I want to cool myself down with this idea of the best water parks in the world. So please do send me pictures or diagrams or documents with your best designs for water parks. I'd love to see them. That's the Taskmaster challenge. My other challenge is the 5 a day. That's linked in the description below, and also I will add in a link to some practice worksheets for this just as soon as I've gone. Thank you very much for joining me. I have been Mr. Harris. You haven't. I will stay in the chat for anyone who's having mild panic attacks. Let me know what you're doing. Let me know what you're struggling with. Put questions below the video as well. I do apologise for being late. It was very unprofessional. I feel very embarrassed. Hopefully, I will be here on time for 12 o'clock for anyone who wants to join that one, where I'm going to be doing some secondary maths, and can't remember what it is, but it's on the calendar on Facebook, and I'll share the calendar on here as well. Thank you so much for joining me. Speak to you soon.